Okay, so when it's white to play and win, in order for white to win, black must have something wrong with his position. I call those things that are wrong with somebody's position a seed of tactical destruction. And here, there's not a lot of seeds. It doesn't look like there's much going on here. One of my students decided he would try first the sneaky pin, knight to g6. So knight to g6, of course, the knight is safe. It can't be captured. And it forks the rook and the bishop. The problem is that even though that move is safe and it's tricky, black can just play rook on f to e8 and guard the bishop. And there's not any much follow-up. If white tries to win the bishop pair, then he can't even win his pawn back because he's pinning his own pawn. So knight g6 just doesn't do very much. What else can white do? Well, he can get a rook and a pawn for a bishop and a knight. If we use the Reinfeld numbers, 1, 3, 3, 5, 9, that's a fair trade. But actually, if you use more sophisticated numbers, it's almost always bad to give up a knight and a bishop for a rook and a pawn, at least, unless there's something else happening on the board. But here, maybe there's something else happening. So let's take a look at that. Usually, I would take with the knight first. A lot of lower-rated players like to take with the check first. But here, the threat of the discovered check might even be more forcing than the check. And now when black plays rook takes f7, you don't even have to take the rook. You could try to apply more pressure. The problem is if you play e5, he can just play knight d5, blocking the bishop. And queen h5 is not possible, so there's nothing there. Let's see what happens if he takes the rook. Bishop takes f7 check, king takes f7, and now our only safe check is queen c4 check. Black has king g6, king f8, king e8. For the sake of argument, let's say he just goes back to f8. Well, white could win his pawn back now. He was down a pawn at the start. Or he might even be able to be ahead a pawn. But this doesn't look all that wonderfully promising, giving up the two pieces for the rook and the pawn. So, what could we do? Well, another student said to me, boy, I could maybe fork him on c7 with that bishop. He was looking for seeds. He says, if I could just get that bishop up to c7, I can win material. Well, that's a great idea. The problem is, in order for the bishop to c7 to win material when it's forking a piece that moves like a bishop, like a queen, is it's got to be guarded. And there's no real way to guard that square. So the bishop's not going to go to c7. But that should give you a different idea, which is if the bishop's guarding c7, is it at all possible to guard all the squares that the queen can move to? Well, right now he can't go to a4, he can't go to b5, he can't go to c5, he can't go to d5, he can't go to e5. So the only two squares are, if we could guard c7 with the bishop, would be b6 and a5. Well, the bishop can attack those two squares, so the queen would be trapped if we could get the bishop safely on a diagonal, but we can't. But we can attack those squares b6 and a5 a different way. Let's take our pieces off. If we're just trying to attack b6 and a5, we could do that with a knight on, minus a7, but we could do it on a knight on c4. So if I could get my knight to c4, that would both take it out of the way of the bishop and would trap the queen. So bishop takes f7 check. We're doing that not to win a rook and a pawn for a bishop and a knight, but rather to trap the queen. And now if the rook takes, he may as well. The knight goes to c4, and voila, the queen is trapped, and black has no counterattack against white's queen. So white's going to win material here. Black could save something by playing b6, but after takes and takes, white has two pieces white has a queen for two pieces, and with correct play should be winning. So that's the answer to the problem. Bishop takes f7 check, followed by knight to c4, trapping the queen. This is not a trivially easy problem. It's very easy to miss ideas like this because you have to kind of put everything together across the board. This is the kind of problem in a real game, I might miss it too. But when it's a puzzle and I know there's something there, I'm going to keep working and working and working at it till I figure it out. So as a puzzle, it's not quite as hard. But this is the kind of thing that I could envision myself possibly missing in a real game.